Sahana Vavatu, Sahanao Bunaktu, Sahaviryang Karavavahe, Tejasvina Vadhitamastu, Ma Vidvishavahe. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Chapter 2, verse 14. We talked about knowing now about what your instrument consists of, the three bodies. Then the question comes is, how do you operate this instrument regarding all of the challenges and all of the situations that this instrument has to participate with? And we said that life, which consists of really just bringing this instrument wherever you go, is bringing you a lot of different situations for everyone. And life has to be dealt with, whether you like it or not. And the reason is because you don't call the shots. Nobody calls the shots. So, however and whatever comes to you, that is a fact. And we have this idea that, naturally, you want things to be, different, but then sometimes, things are not working out. There, disappointments come, confrontations come, and some hard times come, and could be physical pain, it could be psychological distress, and you come to realize that this really is the experience of Earth. This is how it is here. Maybe if you go to heaven, maybe there you have a lot more pleasant experiences, and it's much easier to get along with everyone there. But when you come to Earth, Earth is a very unique place, and it's a place where you can't quite win nor lose here. It's a zero-sum game. So when you think everything's working out, you realize very quickly that it can, in one little, one little thing can go sideways and everything can change. The relationship can go from wonderful to not wonderful at all. And then it can go from not wonderful at all, and then you can have a breakthrough, and then it goes into, wow, I am so relieved that we have together broken through this challenge, which we thought is impossible to break through. So you come to see that this is just how it is. And as I said last week, it's a place where you do your work. The ushna, the shita, the sukha dukkha, the mental afflictions, the physical afflictions, they're a byproduct of your being on earth. They're not an end, they're just an indicator of what your work is bringing you. What kind of consequences is your work bringing you forward? And you come to see that I don't have the decision, I don't have the power to change other people's intelligence. I don't have the power to influence other people's decisions. So this means that someone can make a decision that is totally against, or something that you totally, were not expecting. And it's not keeping with your happiness. And someone makes that decision, and you depended upon them or the status quo to be in a certain way, like a job or friend, and your friend makes a decision, someone close to you makes a decision, and it totally is not what you wanted. And you come to see, yeah, I don't have any power to influence them. I never did. They have the power to make their own minds up for whatever reasons they did. And you find out that this is the experience of living on earth. I can't win here. I can't ever be right. I can't ever create a perfect situation, no matter where, with whom. It's a utopian dream. So this makes you develop a certain composure, which is what we said last time, titiksha, a certain composure by which I interact with the world, a world where I cannot win, I cannot ever get it my way completely. And if one does, what's that called? An over-domineering, over-dominant personality. And no one likes this kind of personality. So the irony is, the more I try to control, influence other people's decisions, the farther away I push people away, and then one ends up lonely. So even that doesn't work ultimately. And one certainly doesn't want to be in a position where one is, forcing others to kind of, respect you out of mere fear, because that is not real friendship. That is, forced, it's induced. So that doesn't work either. So then you come to ask yourself, so then how do I deal with this? What do I do with this? Even in chapter 14, verse 23 to 26 of the Gita, Krishna extends upon this argument and says, even in reference to those who praise you and those who criticize you, even then I have to have a certain kind of composure. Because even those who praise you can be coming from a certain delusion. You're in a powerful position, political position, and I'm praising you. Why? Because my idea of what's the right thing to do conforms with your idea of what's the right thing to do, but it's not the right thing to do. Someone can praise you. Look at this. Suppose you show yourself for one day, and in 1 hour between 12 to 1 o'clock in the day, you're at your peak. You're in touch with it, and someone praises you. But the moment like 1 hour is gone, you go into your slump mode. If that person were to be there that 1 hour between 1 and 2, would they have praised you? No, not as much as they did between 12 and 1. So look at this. Between 12 and 1, I was so elated. Wow, I'm so praiseworthy. Based on how many variables? The weather, who was around you, how you woke up, which side of the bed you woke up, the timing, your age. So even to accept praise, one has to have a certain composure, because it is relative to many things. Same thing with the censure or criticism. A common thing of a new beginner spiritual seeker, at least that I notice, is that when you say something, suppose you're a teacher, if you say something that is not entirely keeping with the likes of a seeker who wants to discover what is the reality, the common pattern you will notice is that they will dismiss you. The entire person, the entire teacher gets dismissed like that. Just based on one little thing that you say, the entire person is now wronged. Just because what you said doesn't agree with their little idea of how things are supposed to be. And then when they dismiss you, they brush you off with some, whatever, you don't know anything, go and listen to him or her. Common pattern. Should I take it personally? It's not. Is it your thing? Is it your thing? It's not your thing. Think about the pressures that a person's growing up with, unresolved. A lot of us are working. We don't have time to look at our inner stuff. And there's unresolved inner stuff, conditioning, culture, all of the little things that people pick up in this world. All of this put together gets dumped onto the world. It gets projected onto you. And then you take it personally. There's no reason to take it personally. It has barely anything to do with you, nothing to do with you. So even criticism, I have a certain equanimity because it's got nothing to do with you. The person's operating from their own limited understanding of who you are, what you are, how things are supposed to be, how things are not supposed to be. You're being yourself. You're already working on yourself. So by this, one remains composed. Hey, you can praise me, that's fine, but I've got my thing to do. I've got my life to live out. You can criticize me, but I'm working on myself. So you haven't really helped me because I'm working on myself anyway. But at the same time, not being completely dismissive, because it's easy to, right, just now go into the other extreme and just start to dismiss left and right. Oh, it doesn't matter, I am beyond these 3 bodies and you're not really praising me. So this is not what we're saying, because everyone has a certain, right, recognition of a blind spot that you don't see. Most people see something that you don't see, that I don't see even. But the thing is, the delivery is usually mixed in with the personal bubble, the personal pressure, personal ideals, personal expectations. So you have to discern what is it from this praise or criticism that I can extract and learn from? And what is it that I can discard from? What is it to be discarded? And what is it that I can learn from? And usually what is to be discarded is, right, the way that it's delivered, how it's, delivered and the tone with which it's delivered. And this is a personality that a person tells you. But there's also times when someone says something to you and it hurts you. But if you consider it, you can learn a lot from that. For example, one time somebody told me, Andre, you're not speaking from the heart, you're speaking from your head, right? And I'm the teacher, right? And it's kind of hurtful, right? As a human heart, you have a human heart, so you're gonna feel the little pang of that moment. Like, really? It's very, hurtful because I do all that I can to give the best. But I thought about it. What do you mean I'm speaking from the head? And so I went into it. What does it mean to speak from the heart? So I started to look at the videos of those teachers who are speaking more from the heart, whatever the heart means. I asked my teacher, what do you mean? Like when you speak from the heart, when you're coming from the heart and not from the head, what is the difference? I asked the question. So I took on board the criticism, the feedback. Maybe it's their thing. I don't know. You will never know. But you can trust. Maybe there is something there that I can learn. So like this, what is to be taken on board and what is to be discarded? This much one recognizes. Rather than a black or white. No, it's your thing. I don't care. Or get totally emotionally thrown off. In fact, the word vairagya or viraga, this raga, v means without. Raga means, that comes from the root ranj, which means to color in. So viraga is without the tendency of coloring things in. So what this means in English means dispassion. But dispassion does not mean indifference, being cold or distant or non-caring or sort of just, that's your stuff and this is my stuff. Dispassion means that if I live with a expectation of how things are to be, how things must be, then it means that a person's coming from a misunderstanding of the world. You don't have the right understanding that the world is not here to suit your fancies, because everyone has their own thing. So you have so many personalities coming together, and somehow we need to make it work. So this passion is recognizing that even though none of us are exactly the same, somehow I need to make things work for my own well-being, because you're part of the network. If you take yourself out, where will you go? You will go into another network, which also consists of connections. So no matter where this person runs off to, you're always in the same network of the same causes. So this passion then means that, yes, I am in this network of people and situations and challenges. Knowing that I have to make things work, retain a certain composure, absence of coloring things in. That means absence of wanting it to look like what it's supposed to look like. Absence of making it in my own mind what I want it to be. So one catches themselves. Am I now creating a story how I want this person to be towards me? Am I creating a story how I should be? I am Brahman. How is the Brahman is supposed to act? So this is, again, you see what's happening here? The person's creating a bubble. They're creating a bubble, and now they're entertaining this bubble and creating little stories. How is it that a wise person acts? What is it a wise person says? How do they respond? Is there an answer to this, by the way? How a wise person acts and how they act in this world and how they say and what they say. Is there an answer, a definitive answer to this? What are you going to say? What do they say? What do they say? It's a personality thing. Everyone's wearing three bodies. It's a personality thing. You can't tell a wise person by the personality. You can tell certainly characteristics that have gotten them to clarity. Reaching out, compassion, straightforwardness, dispassion, but you can't tell who's a wise person. So all of these ideas, these bubbles that we're carrying, right? They have to be popped, popping the bubbles one by one. Okay. Now, in verse 15 is going to continue this and actually take it a little bit bigger and ask the question, but then how do I have this samatvam, this equanimity? The wise person in verse 15, I will chant very soon, is portrayed as someone who is relatively unaffected by happiness and unhappiness, right? Now you say, but how is this possible, right? Everyone's supposed to respond to this. Well, they have a certain understanding in regards to pain and pleasure. And what is this understanding? The Vedic vision of Ishvara. That is the understanding. So what is Ishvara? Ishvara is the Lord, manifesting as this world, manifesting as you right now. You see yourself as a form, but actually this form is just intelligence, Ishvara. So the Vedic vision of Ishvara is not some god that is sitting somewhere, distributing flowers like Lakshmi sitting on a lotus flower and distributing wealth to those who deserve it, and punishing people with a thunderbolt. This is not the vision of the Vedic God. Rather, the understanding is that in this world, Ishvara is in a form of impartial causes. What are impartial causes? Impartial causes mean Ishvara is in a form of those causes which deliver whatever results are coming. But these causes are not personal. They're not punishing you. They're not kind of, let me reward you. They're just acting out impersonally in which you find yourself in. And when you throw a certain cause into the world, a certain effect comes back to you. So for example, right, you have a very, Asha, I know, you have a very, saint, and the saint's vase is precious to them. And the saint is poor. It's the only vase they have. It's very important to them, and it keeps them alive. It gives them hope because it reminds them of their parents. It's their symbol that keeps them alive. And the vase accidentally falls to the floor. Can Ishvara's laws suddenly suspend themselves for one single saint who's done nothing but good in this world? No. Ishvara cannot violate his own laws. Ishvara is not punishing the saint because the vase fell. In fact, before the war started, Mahabharata, Yudhishthir came to Krishna and he said, "You're the only person in this world who can stop the war." Now, the war symbolizes those conflicts in life. You're the only person that can stop this undesirable situation in my life. So we don't have to make it a war. It's about, right, your own situation. And what does Krishna say? No, I can't stop the war. I can't stop the undesirable from happening to you. All I can do is I can go up to Duryodhana, to Dhritarashtra, but Duryodhana intercepted, and I can make an offer. I can say to him, hey, give him back their precious Indraprastha. Give him back, because this is unnecessary, it's destructive, it's not going to be good for either side. All I can do is I can just offer, present something, and Duryodhana can say yes or no. I can't stop the war. So this is our idea of Ishvara, that Ishvara is going to stop the election. Ishvara is going to stop someone gaining power who's not supposed to gain power. Ishvara is going to stop the divorce. Ishvara is going to bring you the love of your life. We imagine Ishvara, some person who's like delivering and deciding for us. We have this idea, hey, if it's to be, let it be. You see this passivity, how we think? If it's to be, it's going to happen. I have no control whatsoever. This is our idea of Ishvara. Someone who is just there judging and making decisions for us. This is not what Ishvara is. Another story is when both Arjuna went to Krishna, who was sleeping, and they both requested help from Krishna, the Lord of the universe. Did Krishna say to Duryodhana, I'm not going to give you anything because I know you're going to cause destruction with my army. I'm only going to reward Arjuna. You have done consistently bad, Duryodhana. There is no way I'm going to reward you now that you have asked something from me. Did Krishna deny anything to Duryodhana? No. This is our idea. This is our idea of Ishvara. Ishvara is going to make a decision, and Ishvara is going to stop bad things happening. Going to make up a decision for me and bring me some magic in life, or take away this pain. Ishvara is going to take away pain from my life. All I have to do is just pray, 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 which does help somewhat. And Ishvara is going to magically just pull it out of my life. Ishvara doesn't make up decisions for you, doesn't intercept in your life, doesn't interfere in your life, doesn't violate its own laws. Look at this. Lord Krishna comes to earth. He cannot even violate his own laws. The laws are infallible. They are always what they are. They never change. They don't make any exceptions. Only a human being has this idea. Look at this. Duryodhana, you have done consistently bad. Now you're asking for help for the army. I'm not going to give you this because you have so much papam. I'm not going to give you this time any help. This is our idea, human beings' idea. But look at the way Ishvara is. You can do consistently bad. The moment you make one decision to change your life around, does Ishvara say no? Look at that track record, Mr. or Mrs. You have a long track record of bad deeds on your account. There is no way I'm going to help you. Is this what Ishvara does? Only a human being thinks like this. The moment the person, like Duryodhana, makes a course correction, says, Krishna, I'm sorry. I want to give them back Indraprastha. I made a mistake. Does Krishna now go, fine, I'll think about it. I'll think about it. No. Lord instantly responds. All I have to do is just make a course decision, course correction, and immediately everything changes. If you and I go up to a tree, the tree is just being a tree, a wonderful tree, it gives life. And we start to rub ourselves against the tree. Take your shirt off with your arm and you just start to rub yourself against the tree. And someone says, don't. You're misusing the purpose of the tree. And you say, what do you know? Keep rubbing, keep rubbing, keep rubbing. And what happens? Bleeding starts. Can you be angry at the tree? Is the tree punishing you? The tree is not punishing you at all. Who punished you? I punished myself by misaligning myself with the laws. Failure to acknowledge the laws, not aligning myself with the laws, not interfacing with the laws properly. Who gets punished? I get punished. It was not Ishvara punishing me. Ishvara was just being Ishvara. Tree was just being a tree, giving so much life forms, so much beautiful life forms to birds and right, and to protect you from the shade, with the shade. There's no Lord out there who is magically going to save you. It means I, as an individual, have a responsibility to say, this is what matters to me. Now I'm going to take action, and I'm going to, by that, be graced with Ishvara's love, Ishvara's grace. That's why we say grace is earned.
I know, I just wanted to say that it is because of Ishvara, our eyes can see, our nose can smell, and things like that. So,
yeah.
In context to the previous, I lost my train of thought, but in the previous thing, when you were talking about what does Ishvara do, then I said that. So the answer, I think is because of, otherwise the body cannot do anything.
Yeah.
But the eyes can see because of that Ishvara, ears and all the other stuff.
So in other words,
yeah.
So in other words, Arsha is now speaking to me. I'm responding to Arsha. Why? Because, are you like doing all of your brain neurons right now? Are you doing anything now? This is a spontaneous conversation is taking place. Who's doing that? Are you beating your heart, digesting your food? Are you making, all of the information of the five senses come together and create a cohesive image of the world and make sense of it? No, all I do is open my eyes and somehow it just makes sense. This is all work of Ishvara, intelligence working behind the scenes, but also as the scene itself. Now there's a two thing here. Not only behind the scenes, but as the scene itself is also a manifestation of this intelligence, reorganizing, reshuffling itself constantly to obtain as this world, to obtain as these laws, to obtain as you, the one which never forgets. You may forget what you've done and you go, why did I receive this? Oh Lord, you're punishing me. But Ishvara has a nice little database archive. It says, see this action? I have to return it back to you. This is how the laws are. It's just how it is. And I can't complain. I have to say, okay, this has come to me now. I don't know why. It totally sucks that it's come to me. It's not pleasant, but I have to deal with it because that's how the laws are. Ishvara is not going to exempt you. So this means that even if, right, I've done consistently bad, right? Bad, distorted. The moment you make that course correction, immediately Ishvara starts to bless you because your own actions start to bless you. Unlike a human being who says, no, remember what you said last time, huh? No, I'm not going to accept your apology. Remember how many things you did back then? Why? Why should I listen to you now? This is human being. So more like Ishvara, less like a human being. This is the goal. We call this more Ishvara Srishti, less Jiva Srishti. Ishvara Srishti, that means more like Ishvara's creation and less like my own self-centered ideals, expectations, assumptions, likes and dislikes. Less of that, more like Ishvara.
Yeah, Andre, one question. You mentioned about the moment one makes a course correction, Ishvara immediately starts to bless you. But is that not contrary to what we heard in the earlier sessions? Because you have your earlier punya papa, karma phala, all that which has come. You have come with the prarabdha. Now, that's why we see a lot of people who are doing a lot of not so good things, but they are enjoying life because of maybe the past, whatever they brought.
Yeah.
So this course correction immediately taking effect, I didn't get that point very clearly.
Good. So yes, it has a drishta, a scene. So it's a good question. So what Vijay is saying is, see, suppose there's a face like this, right? And the moment I start to change, right, some course correction, we'll symbolize it as a happy face, then what happens? What do I get? I get what's called drishta phala, right? So you feel goodness, you feel empowered. I was able to do the right thing. I was able to tell the truth for once. I was able to, hug you and tell you how much I love you. And I was able to say, I'm sorry. It was hard, but I was able to do it. So you feel some kind of an empowerment the moment you, for the first time ever, right? For the first time ever, you sort of, do what's the right thing. The second thing, what you don't see is, so in that case, it's immediate. What you don't see is the adrashta. So I'm just going to put an adrashta. So adrashta phala is the unseen. So what you've just done is you made it easier to do it again next time. Because the first time is very hard. Second time is much easier. Third time is a little easier. So what you've actually done is you've created a potential that's opened up new opportunities for you. So in that sense, it's immediate, but there's also delayed, which you don't see immediately. And this delay can be the next lifetime.
I had a question. Is Ishwar, and is there someone beyond the Ishwar also, or Ishwar is the ultimate reality?
Ishvara can be seen from different standpoints. We'll say Ish. And we'll just for now say Ishvara has two aspects to be understood. Not that it's two different things. We'll call this apara, and we'll call this para. Para is what we call a Sat and Chit, existence awareness, and apara is not only five elements, time and space, three gunas we'll discuss later, but it's also We'll call it all knowledge and all power. All knowledge and all power. Sarvajna, Sarva Shakti. Sarvajna, Sarvajna, Sarva Shakti. So all knowledge, all power. This is definition of Ishvara. Now, Ishvara, you said, now your question is it the highest reality? Now, there's a relationship between apara and para. And what is this relationship? This relationship is called Satya-Mithya. What is Satya-Mithya? This will be discussed in verse 16, and then your question will become more and more clear.
Hi. So I'm just wondering, what is the role of prayer then, if we talk about, like if something not so good is happening to you and it's karma, past deeds, where does prayer come in? Because I don't know, like I find difficulty in asking, like praying and asking for help in difficult situations. Whatever is supposed to happen, and praying isn't going to, like, make that better or help you get through it. So I'm just wondering, like, where does prayer come into all of this?
See, Vedic culture is a very prayerful culture. On the contrary, we think, this is kind of an intellectual pursuit, but it's a very devotional and prayerful culture. And this is because prayer not only acknowledges the presence of Ishvara, but also technically is because prayer is an action. So we'll call prayer an action. And the way that the laws are set up is that every action, no matter how small, has a reaction, has some kind of an effect. You may not see it immediately. That's why usually prayer is adrashta, as I said to Vijay. So prayer is adrashta, and that means it's delayed. Delayed. So every action is going to return you some kind of an effect. That's just how the laws are. So every time you pray, you're introducing a new cause into the field, a new cause. Now look at this. What's the difference between a prayer and a ritual, like a yajna?
Yeah, so I think prayer is more like a mental thing, mental body, and yajna is like for physical.
The difference is prayer involves no materials to be used.
Yeah, I think in yajna there is offering also, right? You're offering something which obviously will have something that comes back because you're offering. Whereas in a prayer, it's more of mental, as Ashish or someone was mentioning.
A prayer is short. Closing your eyes. It's very simple. There's no rules. It can be something like, Om Aim Saraswati Namaha, Om Gam Ganapataye Namaha, Om Dum Durgaya Namaha, Om. These are called bija mantras, short prayers, and you're acknowledging that you're asking for something. But a yajna is long. It involves material. It involves Agni, involves a Brahmana, involves sitting down, involves, memorizing, involves chanting, 30 minutes. And the rule is the longer time you put into something, the better the result, the greater the result. That's the general law that cannot be violated. So a prayer is, for example, 5 minutes, and this is 30 minutes. So what's going to give you more increased amount of benefits? A yajna. But is yajna easy? No, it involves a lot of work, some materials, as Arsha was saying, the fire, throwing, different offerings to the fire. And, it's a more organized ritual. But either way, both of them are an action, and every action returns a cause. Now, what Leela was saying is sometimes I don't feel comfortable, or some of us feel like we're not, we're wasting our time. Well, if I think about the purpose of an action. Every action has to give you some kind of a result. So if you start to think like this, then prayer isn't just some random thing that it's not a belief. There's actually a scientific, backup behind it. Because there is not one thing in this world that you can do which doesn't have some kind of an effect. Everything counts. Everything counts. This is how it is set up here. Every morning when I wake up, I pray 5 minutes. Before sleep, I pray for 5 minutes. Om Aim Saraswatyai Namaha, and I think about help me have a better memory, help me to connect all of the dots, Saraswati, help me to bring this knowledge, so I can access different parts, so I can be a better teacher, right? I say Om Dum Durgaya Namaha. In other words, I pray to Durga. Durga is an aspect of Ishvara, not some different being, different from Ishvara, an aspect of Ishvara, which is there to give you mental strength, emotional strength. So when I say Om Durgaya Namaha, Om Dum Durgaya Namaha, Om Dum Durgaya Namaha, Om Dum Durgaya Namaha, Om Dum Durgaya Namaha, like this for 5 minutes. Am I just saying this mindlessly? No, not mindless prayer. You're actually thinking, what does Durgaya represent? It is Ishvara. You're praying ultimately to Ishvara. So now that you're praying to Durga, is Ishvara getting jealous? Hey, why are you praying to Durga? Pray to me. I'm the Lord of the universe. Does Ishvara get jealous? Why not? Because Ishvara knows that these are not different beings. You're only praying to Ishvara, just an aspect of Ishvara that you're relating to. So whether you pray to Ishvara or Durga or Saraswati or Ganapati, right, or Shiva, they're all manifestations of one Ishvara, which allows you to connect with a different aspect of Ishvara. If I want some mental pattern destroyed in my mind, then I say Om Namo Shivaya Namaha. And what does this do for you? It connects you to the presence of Ishvara. It lets you know this is important for me. It encourages you. It empowers you. It keeps you focused. So this is called relating with Ishvara. Please remember this. These are not different beings. It's not like the Shivites and the Vaishnavites, right? They always battle between them. Why? They're just aspects of Ishvara. One Lord. So whether I pray to this or that, it's always going to the one Lord who is blessing me with an effect. So every time I pray, I'm increasing the chances of receiving positive effects in my life. Therefore, Ishvara has no bad intentions for you when your vase drops, when something you lose money on the stock market, or you're lucky. It's not personal. This is to be understood. It's not personal. Therefore, what gives us samatvam, sukha, dukkha samatvam, equanimity in respect to happy moments and unhappy moments? Knowing this, Ishvara is not rewarding or punishing me. It's just delivering the results, delivering the effects, and how those effects come, you then deal with it, however they are. There's no rules to this. There's no special how. How do I deal with stress? Deal with it somehow. That means I have to ask myself, now that this has happened, now what? What's the next step? Solution mode. Let's think solution mode for a moment. Because the more one entertains, oh no, why this? Oh, it's never working out. I will never be this. I'll never be that. The more one just gets stuck and stuck and stuck, and debilitated by one's own negative thinking. So in this sense, the question then comes, what is the purpose of sukha and dukkha mixture? Because it is a life of a mixture of sukha and dukkha. What is the purpose of this? How does this help us? If you were constantly happy, what would happen? You would be blissfully blunt. Everything will be okay. You will never stop and ask yourself, let me reassess my life. Now that something has happened, let me just reevaluate what are my goals? What do I want for my life to be? What is important for me? And what other than pain encourages you to do this? Therefore, pain, in a sense, keeps you sharp, keeps you on your toes. Are we eliminating pain? No, we're just changing the attitude towards pain. We're just saying, hey, it is here, but it is an opportunity to look into myself. Now that this has happened, now what? How can I work with it? What is the new door that has opened up to me? Now that this relationship has sort of gone a little bit off, what is actually, what is it? What can I learn from this? How can I become a better human being? Can I learn some new communication skills? Can I, relook at myself? So every time it gives us an opportunity to look into ourselves. And sometimes, right, you get shaken up. If you don't get shaken up, there's no inquiry. So pain pushes you to inquire, to reassess the situation, to ask what is to be done. What do I want? Is my life working? Really, is it working? Am I just fooling myself? All of these questions get triggered when something uncomfortable comes. And this is good. It keeps you sharp.
Suffering cracks open the ego and helps one to reflect internally, and so that's why it is that's why there is suffering, or rather there is uh, that's what I read somewhere. I mean, it's not my own statement, it's something that, and I thought that that is why we have things that don't work out for us, and it helps us to think where we went wrong and where we can correct ourselves.
Yeah, and we don't have to read it. We can just, this is our personal experience. It really does shake you up. It makes you, see, wait a minute.
Question.
I've got this scriptural knowledge. I'm living the scriptural knowledge, and I'm responding like everyone else. So it makes you now rethink. So how much am I really living the scriptural knowledge? Think about this. You got the Gita, supposed to be the highest. It is the highest knowledge. And there's a lot of great solutions in the Gita. And yet the person responds no different than someone who has never read the Gita or has actually heard the word spirituality in their entire life. And then you think, then how much am I really living this? What's the point of studying this if I'm not at least trying a little bit to respond as Krishna would respond, to think as Krishna would think in this kind of a situation? And it's uncomfortable to come to that realization, isn't it? You're like, whoa,
Yes.
whoa, So you come to a point and you say, okay, let me step up my, my standards a little bit. Let me not slack off so much, because it's easy just to listen. But I tell you, it's so much harder to live just a little, at least 1% of this knowledge. It's so much harder to do this. So recognizing this, that I'm not living it, pain lets me take myself seriously for a moment. I'm going to make this work, like assertive statement. I'm going to make this work for me. I'm not just going to, passively listen. I'm going to make this work. So question is, how does understanding Ishvara as the impartial cause, how does this change your perspective on life situations?
If you understand it that Ishvara is not biased, and he's totally unbiased, and you take the onus onto yourself, and you are yourself then responsible for everything that you do. Therefore, when you know this, then you try and improve yourself for being getting positive results after this, because at the end of the day, you alone are responsible for everything.
Why might experiencing a mix of sukha dukkha, pleasure and pain, be beneficial for your personal growth?
Yeah, so it causes us to pause and reevaluate our life and our choices and make course corrections.
I think it helps us to work on ourselves, bringing that equanimity, because that's what I think finally leads you to where you want to go. So that growth happens when you are able to deal with those different situations with an equanimous state of mind. Good. So it's working on ourselves. I think that's more what I look at it as.
Yeah. So we can see these are all wonderful opinions, and the common theme is that without pain, without this mixture, right, what it does, it induces this inquiry, induces this thinker, this reflector, and this reflector makes you, right, deeper and deeper understand who you are, what's your connection to situations, what course corrections can you make. So you're becoming more like Ishvara and less like your own little idea of who you are. Now, when I say you're becoming more like Ishvara, am I saying you're becoming more like Sarvajna Sarva Shakti, all knowledge, all power? No, you only know a little bit. And knowing a little bit, can you make the right course correction every single time? Is it possible to do the right thing every single time, considering you're only a dot at any moment of time, you have a dot worth of information available to you, not only about the other person, the situation, but about yourself? Are you ever going to have access to all of the other informations? No, it's not possible. So look at this. Because I don't have all information available to me, is it fair to take it hard on yourself? Is it fair to be hard on yourself and to sort of criticize and condemn and how the other person is acting out of stupidity. Is it very fair to do this, considering not one person has access to all knowledge in the world, to all variables at once? All you and I have is just one little dot at any one moment of time. This is what it means to be, in the Western language, we call it forgiving. What is forgiving? It means that this person is not acting out of malice. Believe it or not, they're not lying. They're just living in a personal bubble. And this personal bubble is pushing one to have a certain take on life, which is not compatible with your own view. And this take is very limited in the amount of information that it has. And it's not compatible with your information. So you know this, and what they know is this. And what they know, you don't know. And what you know, they don't know. This is why we say, Tejasvinavadhitamastu, when we pray. In other words, may we see the elephant is not just the leg, it's not just the tail, not just the trunk. Let's try to see, this is just one perspective of many, one little perspective. And then a person goes in a little story and goes, this is how it is. One little perspective out of 100 different perspectives of thinking, and I'm so stuck on one little perspective. And then what happens? I have emotional response that reinforces that perspective, and it becomes my reality. And then I act into the world in the light of one single perspective that I've got. So who said it? Pause. Someone says the word pause. I think Greg said, pause for a moment and recognize this is just one possibility. There are many, many more possibilities. And right now, I don't have all of the information available to me. So sometimes you just have to wait a little bit to collect yourself, to grab some more information, to see what is the right thing to be done. Yes, Rani?
Just talking about dukkha and sukha, I feel personally it's an emotion that we experience, but ultimately it's how our mind plays on that story.
Yeah.
The sukha, whatever the event is. Yeah. And that's where the fallacy comes, or the mistake comes, and error in our lives.
Yeah, this is a
but
good.
Ultimately, it's the same.
Very good point. So what Rani is saying is that, see, when pain and pleasure comes, this can be an objective thing. It's a fact. It happened. So, right, pain has come or a pleasure has come. That's a fact. Now, what happens that it's a fact? What do? We add extra interpretations onto what it means for me, for the person that's interpreting. Now, it can be one interpretation, it can be another interpretation, it can be another interpretation, which is fine because you're going to have one interpretation or the other. But what happens if I don't have dispassion, what will I do? I will color in this with one single possibility, ignoring all of the other possibilities. So this means dispassion recognizes that there are more possibilities to my thinking. And what I can do is, rather than, being convinced that this is the story, this is what it means, because the brain has a need to attach meanings onto experiences. That's how it makes sense of things. So one has to intercept that deliberately and say, what else could this mean? What else could this mean? Think about it. What else could this mean? Think about it. What else could this mean? Think about it. In Sanskrit, we call this pratipaksha bhavana. What is this? It is when you have a thought, usually unpleasant in nature or sometimes overly pleasant. This is called idealizing, projecting a positive transference onto the teacher, onto the partner, onto the children. Positive transference. That means you idealize them as the next Buddha. One time I was a friend with a mother, and she had two children. One of them was a daughter, naughty, and the younger son was some sort of a special kind of a kid, kind of a wise. A lot of wise things came out of this 3-year-old, and she was almost convinced this is a Buddha who's growing up. And I just listened, like, yeah, maybe not, but this is called positive transference. Your kids are not Buddhas; they're just kids. So this happens. We tend to project unrealistic expectations onto our dear ones. So both ways, whenever that happens, what do? I apply pratipaksha bhavana, an opposing thought. What else could this mean? And this is a beautiful method in the Vedas prescribed to expand your thinking, to create this possibilities, this possibility, this possibility, this possibility. And every time you think opposite, it makes your mind look into some new avenues of possibilities. So every time you say, oh, this person is like that, then you say, yeah, but what is good about them? What is wonderful about them? What quality do they have that I admire? Do we ask ourselves this question? Usually not, right? We just look at this. This is a human being, right? One interpretation. That's it. Full stop. Move on. Next. So Pratipaksha Bhavana is deliberately intercepting and say, wait. This is a thought. I get it. I'm acknowledging. But what else am I missing about it? What else is there behind this story? And that takes effort. There's a book called Thinking Fast and Slow. Now, system one, I think, is the slow system, the deliberate system, the one that thinks, the one that looks into different possibilities. And this is scientific data backing this up. The one that is, it takes effort. And system two is deliberate. It's fast. It's instantaneous. For example, look at this. I'll show you right now. Suppose you're on a train and someone's reading a book. What's the first thing you assume?
You think they're really smart.
Look at this. Instantly. Is that objectively true? Do you even know them? This is system two. Impulsive, easy, quick, instantaneous, and it gives you a jolt of happiness. Ah, I figured them out. Full stop. Next. Scientific data backs this up. This is wonderful. It backs up the Vedic scriptures, right? That's why we say Pratipaksha Bhavana, to intercept that system two, which is the impulsive system, which is you need go back into deliberate. Think about it. I hope I'm getting this right, because system one could be the fast or the slow. I'm not sure, but you get the idea. Okay, so you can see how the human brain operates. It likes easy, it likes effortless, it likes spontaneous. It doesn't want to think. That's why in Vedanta we have a qualified student. We have a somewhat of a thinker. So I would assume that, right? And look at me assuming already, system two, right? That my students are thinkers. I'm a thinker, so, right? There is some thoughtfulness behind every dear student that's attending now. You're a thinker. You think, hopefully. Do you? So this is the idea. And it's not easy, I understand. So you see, this is not an easy journey. You just, offer some yajna, light a candle, do a little prayer, and then move on. It really is something that, that's work. One of the earliest motivational statements that I heard in my young career was successful people do those things that are hard but necessary. Unsuccessful people do those things that are easy and give instant gratification. And this really hit me hard because, you hear this at 17, you're like, oh, so the logic is if it's hard, if it brings you pain, do it. Yeah, it's like this. It's like that. If it's hard and brings you pain, do it. I picked this up at 17. It was the greatest lesson ever. This is the lesson of Pratipaksha Bhavana. If it's hard, do it. If it's easy, then you're probably resorting to system two, impulsive. Not creative, just mechanical thinking, doing the same thing that's already been done before. I don't know what to call it in Sanskrit, but there is 4 types of thinking. There is impulsive. Okay, so this is what we call system 2. This is how we all start out as kids. We impulsively react to situations, don't really think about it. And it's not like, it's not like you've completely moved yourself out of this. Even as a 60 or an 80-year-old, you'll still have impulsive behavior. Now, what the scriptures want us to show is to move, what the Gita wants is to move forward, and that is mechanical. Now, mechanical is, there is some structure to your impulsivity. This is just impulsive, there's no structure. But here you have structured structured impulsivity. So for example, at work, when you go to work and you do microprocessors and you just put the same chip right on the assembly line, chip, 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 it's mechanical, but there's some structure to it. Or at family, right? You just respond in the same way that you've responded before, but there's some education behind your response, but it's not really thinking in a new creative way. So this is mechanical. Deliberate is the next, deliberate. This is exactly Pratipaksha Bhavana or system number one, system one. This is work. And it's not easy at the start because your brain's being conditioned to think like system two, right? Impulsive. So you have to break out of this system two thinking on those important things. It's not easy, and it's not, you don't have to do it in everything because it's not possible to live like this. But, you know, the more you operate from deliberate response, deliberate words, deliberate word selection, deliberate thinking, deliberate conversation, deliberate wisdom, deliberate listening, right? You're going through a process. You're deliberately understanding what is going on now. Deliberate breathing, right? So how can I deliberately breathe? Well, once in a while, you can take a moment to deliberately breathe, and that will switch you back into system one. Now, what happens when you have done so much work in system one, deliberate thinking? Luckily, it doesn't stay like that. You go into final mode, spontaneous. Spontaneous. This is autopilot. Autopilot, but it's a deliberate autopilot. Deliberate autopilot. Deliberately creative, automatically thoughtful, automatically inquirous, automatically careful in your words, automatically you're thinking about your responses. Now that I've said this, did I hurt them? Was I a little bit too strong with my delivery? Was I, how are you, what's your feedback? Let me get your feedback, by the way. So you want to check up with the other person. So there is an interception there and you want to check up. This is deliberately operating from intelligence.
Where would you place intuition?
Intuition is twofold. So the first aspect is based on spontaneous thinking. So number 4, as I just explained, number 4. That means you have done something so well for such a long time that your mind's thinking in the background. For example, there was a story where 5 firemen came into a kitchen and it was very hot in the kitchen. It was a hotel. And they couldn't figure out, why is it so hot in this kitchen? There's no fire. Something's off. And the chief, just like that, intuitively said, get out right now. Get out. Everyone get out. And they all got out. And the moment they did, the floor that they were standing in, the kitchen, collapsed because the fire was underneath in the garage, which was right underneath the kitchen. And so look what happened. He didn't like logically go through the logics. Therefore it's hot and there's no fire. Therefore it means this. He didn't. The background took care of that. This is intuition number 1. The thing with intuition number 1 is it's 50-50. Why? Because half of it relies on past historical data, on the past, and the other half relies on inference. Inference, okay? So in other words, you have to refer to something that happened in the past, and then based on what happened in the past, you infer what could this mean, right? So there's 2 processes working. Now your inference can be off sometimes, and your past may not be keeping with the present, right? Past may not be keeping with the present because they're 2 different situations. This is why your intuition is not always right. It's 50-50. So if I say, oh, it's coming from my intuition, well, it's a 50-50 chance of it being correct. And the second kind of intuition is what's called Ishvara intuition. So Ishvara intuition is when you are coming with total clarity, just an instrument, open instrument, and doing what is to be done in a very short amount of time. And later on, right, when you look at all of the data, how did you know that? How did you I don't know. I just knew. It just came out of me. So these 2 intuitions are also possible. Now, how do you have Ishvara's intuition? You have to purify your mind. Antahkarana shuddhi. Mind purification, prayer, devotion. So keeping with the laws I receive Ishwara's intuition. All right, so I'll chant verse 15. Yam hi na vyatayantyete purusham purusharshabha sammadukka sukham dhiram somrtatvaya kalpate.
Arjuna, the prominent among them, the person whom these sukha and dukkha do not affect, who is the same in pleasure and pain, and who is discriminative, is indeed fit for gaining liberation.
One who is discriminative, in other words, one who recognizes the purpose of life is not necessarily to get loaded with these pains and pleasures, but they're just indicators. And so I put things in the right place. They're indicators for me to move on in the right direction and make a course correction every time I get that feedback. And to the extent to how aligned I am to the laws of Ishvara is the extent to how much Ishvara blesses me with those things that are good for you in the long run and the short run. So for that reason, knowing that it's impersonal, right? It's not kind of punishing me or rewarding me. It's just responding to your actions in the world. So in that sense, it does not affect you. All right, verse 16. Now that we have looked at how to look at our situations in life, then Krishna wants to now take us into a different mode and talk about what is it that I am participating with here? What is it that I'm dealing with? Is it just like forms that I'm dealing with? What is bringing me these situations, these pains and joys? Is it just an object, or is there more to the object than meets the eye? And as we said, there is much more, and this more is Ishvara. Now, to understand how is Ishvara everywhere right now, we have to do a certain methodology. And what Krishna is going to say is, he says that so far we have talked about two kinds of realities. One of them is incidental, which is the whole thing that we've been talking about: pleasure, pain, three bodies, experiences, joys, sorrows, dispassion. These are all incidental forms and experiences that are taking place. Krishna is going to call this incidental. And what do we say about incidental? It is not essential to the presence or to the existence of you, Sat and Chit. Now, Asat has another name called Mithya, which is exactly the same, incidental, but also can mean dependent. That means Mithya means it's dependent upon something else for its existence. That means it cannot exist unless there is a presence of something else that's supplying it the substance. Now, what substance is this? The substance is what's called Sat and Chit. And we said this is intrinsic, your intrinsic nature known to you as your self-evident I am, your conscious self. Now, the thing is, it seems like there's two things, doesn't it? There's thing one and there's thing two. So what we have to do is understand how does all of this collapse into you, into your I am. So how does, right, sukha, dukkha, how does pain and pleasure, how does cold and hot from verse 14, how does this world, how do the trees, how does this air that you're breathing now, how does the space, how does the fire, how does this water, how does everything collapse into you, your consciousness now that's known to you? This is the question that's being inquired. So what Krishna wants to show us is to collapse the world into one reality, which is Sat and Chit. To do this, Krishna starts an inquiry by stating, for example, if I say this is a long pen. Now, if I take the word long away, do you still have a pen? Yeah, so the long, right, whether the long is there or not, it's irrelevant. This is an object. It's totally independent of long. So this is one kind of an example. But this example, long pen, breaks down if I apply it to this. If I say this is a clayen pot, a long pen, a clayen pot. If I take the word clay out, do I have the pot? No, because this pot is, why? This pot is made out of the clay. So here, if I take the adjective out, the adjective is unnecessary. But here, it doesn't make sense in this particular unique example. So this means that you look at this object and you say, huh, so it's two words for one object. Is one reality here, one object, and yet there's two words. One of the words, which is clay, is the substance. And another word is referring to the name and the form of this substance. Now, when I say name and form, is name and form different substance from the substance? But there is a difference, isn't there? There is substance, which is clay, and there is name and form. So then why do we have two names if it's one thing? Before you answer that, look at this. Suppose I say, this is clay. And you say, no, Andre, that's a pot. And we go into a little argument and we say, okay, let's go into a little argument. I say this is clay, you say this is pot. We are both right. Are we both right? I know you're tempted to say yes, absolutely. Okay, so this means that if we're both right, that means I will go to a shop and I will ask the person, hey, give me give me a block of clay. And they go and return pot. And I say, oh, wonderful, thank you. That's exactly what I was looking for. And I go home. Next day, I come to the shop and I say, hey, give me a pot, please. And they bring over a bunch of clay. And I say, that's exactly what I was looking for. Is this going to happen? No, something's going to go wrong. So this means, in this case, we got a little bit of a problem. If we both say this is right, we're saying that they're synonyms, that clay and pot are synonyms, but they're not synonyms. And yet we're saying they're both right. So to say they're both right, it doesn't make sense. But we also can't say that we're both wrong. If I say this is clay and you say this is pot, we can't say that both of them are wrong. Why? Because there is a reality to the clay and there is a certain reality to the pot. And I certainly can't call this tucham. Tucham word means illusion. Tucham, illusion. Suppose you call this pot an illusion. Is it an illusion? No, because if I call this tucham or non-existent or illusion, then what am I simultaneously discarding as illusion? I'm discarding the very substance because of which this pot enjoys a certain kind of an existence. So there's no question of saying they're both right because they're not synonyms. There's no question of saying they're both wrong because they have a certain reality. There's no question of calling any one of these an illusion because they both have some kind of a reality. And what kind of a reality do they have? Well, they have an ontological reality. What is ontology? Ontology means the study of the existence of an object. So what is the status of reality of the clay? And what is the status of reality of the pot? I need to be very clear with that. If I'm not, then we cannot answer the question, who is right? Is it a pot or is it a clay? We can't answer that until we perform an inquiry. So then we say, okay, let me change the question and notice how then it's going to make more sense. If you say that the pot is right, then suppose I take out the clay. Are you right now? You're no longer right. So for how long were you right? While you were saying this is a pot, for how long were you right? You will go on, Vijay?
No, till the time clay is there.
Exactly. You were right for as long as the appearance of this was there. The moment the appearance of the clay has inevitably changed, your so-called righteousness has collapsed right along with it. So this means this right only is relative to the name and form. But the name and form won't stay there for a long time. It's going to inevitably change. But when this name and form changes into something that's much smaller, what is gone? The size, the shape, and the function is gone. But what is still remaining the same? Suppose this is a plate now. The very substance that was here and the very substance that was here remains exactly the same. Now, suppose this pot wants to discover or find its substance. Suppose the substance is the clay and it's the ultimate substance, right? It's the final content of the pot universe. And now the pot goes into some kind of a meditation and tries to look for the clay. Okay, let me find clay. Let me meditate on the clay. Is it ever going to find the clay? No. Why not? Because the clay is what's called praptasya prapti. Praptasya prapti means it is already attained. Praptasya prapti means no matter what this pot does, it is never away from what it is seeking. It cannot look anywhere and find it in any particular place. Just by the virtue of existence of this pot, the very virtue of existence is because of the very thing that it already is all along. Now imagine this pot, right, is, kind of focusing on other pots and says, oh, that's a very sexy pot over there. I think I'm going to marry that one, and all its life is just talking about other pots, pot fork, pot spoon, pot plate, pot cloud, pot tree, tree made out of clay, cloud made, clay cloud, clay tree, clay bird, okay? And all of its life is just constantly talking about nothing but what? The very thing that it's made out of already. And yet, where is its focus? Its focus is constantly on the name and form. But is the name and form any different from itself? Yes and no. What do you mean yes and no? Well, the name and form, right, is not stuck onto the clay, is it? If this pot was stuck onto the clay, if the attribute of potness was stuck onto the clay, could clay ever be something different? Maybe another example. If the wave shape, the size, and the tallness of a wave was intrinsic to H2O, then could water in the ocean ever be anything different but that one single wave? No. In other words, the water has to remain free of the attributes of the wave in order for water to manifest as an infinite amount of different kinds of waves. The clay has to remain intrinsically free of both this kind of size and this kind of size in order to assume temporarily both kinds of sizes. But when it's assuming this kind of size, is the clay, right, denied of assuming this kind of size? No, that's why you can have different kinds of shapes. So this means whether it is like this, is it really like this? Oh, I'm a fat little thing. I'm a fat thing. I'm a fat pot. Oh, look at me. I'm a nobody in this world, a nobody in this world. So both of them have a complex. Why? Because their view, their cognitive understanding of self is where? On the name and form, on the name and form. And yet they're both exactly the same in respect to the substance. So this means that you have to ask a different kind of question. Who is more right? Rather than saying who is right, you have to add one more word and it fixes the equation. Who is more right? The one who says this is a pot or the one who says this is a clay?
Clay.
The one who says this is the clay. Why? Because if you say that the pot is more right, then if I strip out the substance, then your pot is gone right along with it. But if you say that the clay is more right, this means I can strip out the potness, the form out of it and make it into something else. And the exact same substance remains before the form has come, after the form has gone away, while the form is there, And after the form is gone away, the exact same substance remains. The only thing that comes and goes is in reference to the name and form. So now the substance is called Satyam, and the name and form is called Mithya. So what is Mithya? Well, if you take Satyam plus name and form equals Satyam, substance, plus name and form equals Mithya. Now, is this name and form different from the substance? Is this a different substance from Satyam? No, it's exactly the same substance. The only, quote, difference is in regards to the modification of Satyam. But is it a real modification? Has the clay actually undergone modification to become the spot? No, why not? Because if the clay actually underwent the modification to become a pot, it could never assume a different kind of shape with a different kind of function. So now, how do we apply this to your body and mind? How do we understand your nature and the nature of this world? Well, this will be done next week. Purnamadav, Purnamidam, Purnat, Purnamudachyate, Purnasya, Purnamadaya, Purnam Eva Avashishyate. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti.